The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wyoming Women Business Center's 2018 webinar series. Today's presentation is Direct Selling, What Do I Say? My name is Waldo Smith. I am the Director of Microlending here at WWBC, and I will be your moderator today. You'll notice on the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen, there is a box marked Questions Chat. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please type them into this panel, and I will be monitoring those and pass them on to our presenter. Our presenter today is Christine Langley. She is one of the business counselors at the WWBC. She is a sales and marketing expert with over 15 years history in demonstrating success of driving sales growth in some highly competitive markets. In addition to her corporate experience in general management, sales management, and human resources, she is also a real small business entrepreneur and truly understands the joys and challenges associated with business ownership. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel sometime tomorrow. So if you'd like to review it again, or you get interrupted today and want to see the whole presentation, you can do that. Just go to youtube.com, type in Wyoming Women's Business Center, and then make sure you subscribe to check out our other webinars on file. You can also visit our website at wyomingwomen.org or look for us on Facebook. Immediately following today's presentation, a survey will launch as you exit. Please complete the survey, as this provides us and our funding partners valuable information for future grant opportunities. All participants are muted to minimize background noise, so if you have questions, again, type them in the question chat box and I will pass them on to Christine. And with that, I will turn it over to her.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Today's agenda is we're going to cover a little bit about the Wyoming Women's Business Center and the type of services we provide. Then we're going to jump right into our content today, which is direct selling. What do I say? We'll finish up with some Q&A, and if we have additional networking that we want to do offline, we can cover that. So the mission of the Wyoming Women's Business Center is promoting economic equality in Wyoming through successful business ownership. And we really offer three different client services. The first is essentially business planning, where we can help you put together a business plan, but we also do a lot of coaching and motivating and just inspiring, trying to be your cheerleader behind the scenes in order to keep you going with your business. The next thing we do is offer networking and educational opportunities. Today's webinar is an example of that. Online training, of course, and like Waldo said, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, as well as monthly roundtables in cities throughout the state. And then finally, access to capital. We have a special microloan program that Waldo heads up. And so if you have questions about our microloan program, I encourage you to reach out to Waldo, and we'll have contact information at the end of this presentation. All right, so today is going to be about direct selling. And a lot of questions that people have right out the gate is, what am I supposed to say when I start out? And so what I want to talk about first is what you picture a sales professional to be. You know, what do you see when you think about a sales professional? And so I'm going to launch a quick poll just to kind of get us engaged here. And I want you to answer this question. What do you see? Select one of the following. I'm going to keep this open for a little bit. You know, some people will see a professional person that's interested in satisfying their needs, right? And there's no ill will, you know, that they sense or feel from sales professionals. But other people just assume that sales professionals are aggressive or pushy, and they're really trying to coerce you into something. Occasionally, you might think of a sales professional as someone that's just busy and maybe a little disorganized, but they do have every intention of trying to help you. Or maybe it's a person that's trying too hard and feels a little annoying to you. So go ahead and submit your answers to this quick poll. And it looks like we've had some good participation here. We've got about 60% of the vote in. I'll give you a couple more seconds to answer. All right, thanks. And we'll go ahead and close this poll out now. And let's share out these results. All right, so it looks like over half of us have positive feelings about salespeople. That's awesome. We're viewing salespeople as professionals that really want to satisfy your needs. But there are some of us that do see salespeople as pushy or someone that's annoying or trying too hard. And so hopefully in this presentation today, what we're going to be doing is identifying ways to avoid the negativity around direct selling. And really using a consultative approach is what we're hoping for. Okay, so in today, we're going to cover the buying process in the sales funnel. If you've participated in some of my webinars in the past, this may be duplicative content for you, but at the same time, it's never, you can never hear the buying process in the sales funnel too many times, in my opinion, because it's important language for you to understand and really incorporate into your strategy when it comes to selling. There's lots of different ways in order to train sales, especially in a consultative approach. I've done training on a 12-step model, a 10-step model, a 5-step model. My personal favorite is an 8-step model, and so that's usually what I train on. And today we're going to cover just the research call, which is really the introduction to selling. And the research call includes steps 1 through 8 in the 8-step model that is just my personal favorite. And so that's what we're going to focus in on today, just steps 1 through 3. So covering the buying process again, there are 6 steps to the buying process. The first is awareness. And when we talk about awareness, it's truly the awareness of a need. So before you go to purchase something, first you have to be aware that you need it. Now this process can happen really, really quickly. For example, if you're standing in line at the grocery store and you notice something on the shelf, the buying process can happen within a minute or a few seconds, right? Oh, I become aware that I need some breath mints because I glanced at them and then I thought about it. And I'm interested in then satisfying that need for fresher breath. I look at all of the different breath mints and I decide I have a preference for one particular type, maybe because I tried it in the past, right? And I know that I like it, so I've already tried that particular product. I make a commitment to it by picking it up and putting it on the conveyor belt. And if someone asks me, oh, do you like this particular brand? I might say, yeah, I really do. I've used it several times. I think it works well. And then I become an advocate. So that's a quick example of how fast the buying process can occur. Sometimes with other buying decisions that we make, maybe larger purchases, if I'm going to buy a car, or computer, or television, it may take me longer to go through that buying process, but these are the steps that we always go through anytime we purchase something. So when you think about your customer, I want you to think about what stage of the buying process is the customer in when they're communicating with you. You know, are they already aware that they have a need, or are you presenting that need to them? Are they interested in satisfying that need, or is it something that they'd like to put off? They don't quite want to do it right now. Do they have a preference for your particular product or service or your business? So these are all things that you can think about while you're going through the sales process with your customer. Okay, conditions of need. So it's important to understand what condition of need you're actually selling to. And the first condition is dissatisfaction with the current situation. This is the strongest need that you're potentially selling to. It means that I'm not happy right now, not happy with what's happening right now, and I need to change it. My husband and I own a carpet cleaning business. Occasionally, we will sell to people that are currently dissatisfied. It's like an emergency type situation. They'll call up and say, my baby had an accident my dog had an accident, I'm very dissatisfied and unhappy with the current situation, please come fix it. This is a much easier condition to sell to versus the other two. So the second condition is opportunity to improve the current situation. And what that means is everything's okay right now, but I think it could be better. This is more standard for my business, right? People are generally satisfied with their carpet, but they think maybe it could be better, right? It could be cleaner, it could be nicer. It's been a year or 2 years since we've professionally cleaned the carpet. So I'll go ahead, I'm open to getting an estimate, or I'm open to getting a quote. And then the last condition of need is perceived deterioration in the current situation. That means everything's totally fine right now, and I think it'll probably be okay for the foreseeable future, but maybe it will get worse, right? Perceived deterioration. The easiest example of perceived deterioration from a sales perspective is service contracts. So my mother purchased an HVAC system, an air conditioning and unit a few months ago, and they wanted to sell her on a service contract, right? They said, there's nothing wrong with your unit right now, but in the future, it's something that needs regular service. And so would you like to purchase the service contract? We'll come out every 6 months. We'll check everything, on the unit, change out all your filters, do everything that needs to be done in order to maintain the unit. And it's a 3-year service agreement. The first 2 services are free. And then after that, it's X number of dollars a year. That's the best example of sales situations where you're selling to perceived deterioration. All right, moving on to the sales funnel. So this diagram depicts the sales funnel, which really is the process you are going to use to secure a customer. And so if you compare it, the sales funnel, to the buying process, you'll be able to see where the two really intersect. So when we talk about suspects, suspects are people that don't know much about your business and you really don't know much about them. It's just a list, essentially, that you've created of people that you think might be interested in doing business with you. Prospects are at the top of the funnel, and that's because they know something about your business and you know something about them. So there's been some kind of engagement, either through marketing and advertising or through referral. There's some kind of engagement or knowledge that you have about each other. The next stage of the sales funnel is them actually becoming a customer. And I always say there's 2 different types of customers, right? There's trial customers, and then there's consistent customers. A trial customer is someone that's testing the waters with you, right? Seeing how it is. Now, sometimes you can trial and not actually make a purchase, right? I can go to a car dealership and actually drive a car, test drive a car, I'm trying it out. Other times a trial could be just a small service, right? So in my business, it might be someone's calling us just for stain removal. And then in the future, they'll say, hey, I thought you did a great job on that. All right, now I'm going to have you clean our whole house. Once customers become consistent, your hope is that they flow down to the bottom of the funnel and actually become advocates for you, which would mean they'd tell other people in order to get additional business for you. And if you look at this sales funnel, you'll see that there's a bunch of different colors, at the top of these balls, and there's only red coming out the bottom. And the reason is because there's actually holes in your funnel, right? So not all suspects become prospects, not all prospects become customers, not all customers become advocates. And there's actually only a 25% closing ratio from suspects to prospects, prospects to customers, and customers to advocates. So when you think about those numbers, it makes you recognize how many suspects we actually have to begin with. If you start out with 100 suspects, that is going to equate to about 25 of those people becoming prospects. Prospects to customers, you'll only have about 5 customers convert from prospects to customers, and customers to advocates, that means only 1 advocate is coming from a total of 100 suspects. So it gives you information around how full your funnel needs to be on a consistent basis in order to be seeing the production results from the sales activity that you do. All right, so let's talk about communication tips. Before I get into, the structure of how you actually open a sales call, I always like to talk about power words versus weasel words. Power words are things like I will, I can, definitely, absolutely, certain, agreement, investment. Weasel words are when we're feeling a little insecure about what we're communicating about. And we say things like maybe, or might, or possibly, think, or perhaps. And so when you get into weasel type language, this is when your customers can start to lose confidence. And so it's important to eradicate those weasel words sort of out of your vocabulary and focus in on those power words when you're talking to customers. All right, pre-call planning. So a lot of us will do some pre-call planning before we actually contact a prospect. And we do this for a variety of different reasons, right? We want to identify, who our suspects are or who our prospects are, kind of create a list, get prepared for who we're going to contact. And part of that preparation can be reviewing the contact history. How many times have I called them in the past? When's the last time, I engaged with this suspect or prospect? Have they ever done business with us in the past? Let's take a look at their website, try to figure out who the best person is to talk to. And then lastly, it's always a good idea to set some call objectives, either primary or secondary call objectives. And the difference between those two is that a primary objective can be a pretty aggressive goal, like I'm going to close the sale or I'm going to get some business. A secondary objective is a simplified objective that 9 times out of 10 you're going to hit when you contact this person. Is it getting an email address? Is it getting the right name of the person that you need to speak with, right? You want to set a secondary objective that is highly attainable. When you set these kinds of call objectives in primary and secondary, it helps you feel successful almost regardless of the outcome of the call. Okay, so another thing that we want to look at is the reasoning behind the time that you spend. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here, and I want to know, how much time do you spend pre-call planning right now in your business when you're doing sales activity? And so just select one of the following, the one that rings true to you. And I'll leave this up for a few seconds here. So the first one is 15 to 30 minutes. So when you do pre-call planning, are you someone that simply, looks to see when the last time is you call them, you have a quick spreadsheet, that you look at, you don't hesitate or spend too much time thinking about it. You just pick up the phone or you walk in the door in order to meet this person. There's not a lot of hesitancy around it. Or does your business require a little bit more research? Is it more like 1 to 5 hours? Is it 1 week preparation for one sales call? Or do you spend several weeks of planning to ensure your success? Or would you say none at all, right? You don't do any kind of pre-call planning. Okay, we've got about 70% of our participants that have voted, so I'm just going to keep it up for a couple more seconds here. It's great. We got 1 more, 2 more. We're close to 90%, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll out, and let's take a look at the results. All right, so this is somewhat evenly mixed. It looks like no one's spending a week or several weeks, and I would congratulate everyone on that. I think that if you're in the bucket of spending a week to prepare for a sales call or several weeks of planning, that actually is more like sales avoidance than it is pre-call planning. So I would encourage you to be in either the 15 to 30 minute bucket or the 1 to 5 hours bucket. The none bucket, you may want to look at any kind of pre-call planning that might assist you. But sometimes when we're in a retail business and people are simply walking in our door, there isn't a whole lot of pre-call planning that we can do. But for this purpose, for this webinar today, we're talking about consultative sales where you're actually reaching out to the person in order to conduct a sales transaction. So there typically would be some kind of pre-call planning that happens with that. All right, guys. So let's launch right into our actual selling process. And so like we talked about, I'm only going to cover the first 3 steps, but I wanted to show you the 8 steps of the sales process. And they're really broken down into kind of 4 big categories. The first category is creating interest. The second category is establishing needs. The third is satisfying those needs. And then finally, asking for the sale. So today we're just focused on creating interest and establishing needs. And when we do that, those are the first 3 steps of the sales process, which is opening, gathering information, and then paraphrasing. So let's talk about opening the call. When we open the call, there's actually 4 different segments to opening a call. The first is greeting, then getting attention, creating interest, and ultimately asking for time. And so I'm going to launch another quick poll because I pointed this in the last poll that we talked about. This is a common issue for a lot of business owners as well as employees that you might have in your organization. And so what causes you to avoid sales activity? You know, we all have a to-do list that we've got at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the day, and sometimes sales ends up on the bottom of that list, or we go to a lot of other things before we go to sales activity. And so just to give me a sense of the audience today that's on the call, tell me what you struggle with the most. Is it that you don't know how to start the conversation? Is that it just feels awkward or you're a little embarrassed? Do you think maybe people aren't very interested or kind, interested in what you have to say, and sometimes they can be, you know, kind of off-putting? Or do you just have a strong belief that your marketing and advertising should work so that they call you and you don't actually have to go out there and do it? And then lastly, do you just have some negative feelings about sales? So think about which one of these, you know, apply to you, and click whatever makes sense. All right, we've got about 60% that have voted. I'm just going to keep it open for a couple more seconds. Just gauging our audience here so that I can make sure I hone in on the right things and that we get the most out of today's webinar. All right, great participation, guys. Let's go ahead and share out those results. And it looks like the top 3, and oh, number 2, 75%. Okay, I think I hit on something there. So feeling awkward, insecure, or embarrassed, really normal. Really normal. Everyone feels this way. Shouldn't say everyone, but 75% of you, almost everyone feels this way. And then we got a few responses on the, you don't think people are very interested or you don't know how to start the conversation. And so one of the things that opening the call or having a structure can help with opening the call, can help you overcome that feeling of insecurity or embarrassment because you've got a plan and you know what you're going to say. And then the second thing that comes with overcoming something is just practice makes perfect, right? Doing it over and over again so that it fails to feel awkward going forward. So some of it, you know, truthfully is going to be just powering through it, but the other is just being prepared and having a script or, you know, a structure laid out that you're feeling comfortable with. All right, thanks for the participation there, guys. And so let's launch into the greeting. So this is the first step in opening the call. And most people have this down. If you don't have a paper and pen out or something you can jot down some notes with, grab that for me, because I actually want you to be writing out what your opening is going to be as we go through this, so that at the end of this webinar, you've got a little script that makes sense to you. So the greeting is simply introducing yourself and your company and extending a greeting. And I want you to notice that in this example here, we're not selling anything yet, right? All we're doing is saying hello. So, hi, Shelly, I'm Christine with the Wyoming Women's Business Center. How are you? Right? Short, to the point. This is just a simple greeting. So go ahead and write down your greeting. Usually this is the easiest step in opening the call. The greeting is pretty straightforward. The next step in the opening the call is getting the prospect's attention. And what we're trying to do is shift the prospect's focus to you, or focus on something familiar, using a referral. There's all different techniques that you can do in order to get their attention. I really like the referral technique. And so it sounds something like this. Waldo suggested I connect with you about your online marketing. Right? So right after we did the greeting, we launched right into, this is essentially getting their attention and a little bit of rapport building, right? If I mention someone that I think they know, then they all of a sudden shift their focus on that familiar person that we have in common, and potentially they're ready to listen. So when we contact someone for sales, when we walk in the door, the assumption is they weren't expecting us necessarily. We may not have an appointment. And so we have to get their attention off of whatever they're currently doing and onto us. And so these are some strategies in order to do that. So I want you to write just one get attention statement. And you're welcome to beg, borrow, and steal here. You can copy mine and just put in things that make sense for your business. All right, the next step to opening the call is what we title creating interest. And creating interest is truly the most important aspect to opening the call. If there's no interest, there's no sale, right? Someone has to be interested in what you're potentially presenting to them. And so when you develop an interest statement, which is what we call it, you have to answer the WIFM. And WIFM stands for what's in it for me, right? Why should your customer care about what you're talking about? And so what we want to do in this interest statement is we want to present the major benefits. You also have the option of stressing pain or loss avoidance in your interest statement. So you can go positive or negative, whatever you think is going to be more effective, or you can combine the two together. But essentially what we're doing here is we're stating an idea. So we're not selling our product or service yet. We're not listing off all of the features and benefits and why they should be interested. We're just teasing them with an idea of a major benefit or something that they could avoid that we know they want to avoid in the future by listening to us. So we purposefully want to avoid mentioning the product or service. And so there are really 4 different types of interest statements, and we're going to go through all 4 of those in the next couple minutes. The first is a benefit. The second is a pain loss avoidance. The third is a combo, right? Putting those 2 things together. And then the last is an insurance statement. It's kind of a, if all else fails, this is my backup interest statement. So let's start with the benefit interest statement because it really accentuates the positive. And it sounds something like this. I have some ideas to increase your online marketing presence, right? So I'm just picking, a particular business or something that I might be selling. And so I want you to think about your particular business and what are the things that your business increases, right? If it was my carpet cleaning business, I might say, I've got some ideas on how we can increase the lifespan of your flooring. So benefit interest statements, accentuating the positive. See if you can't fill in the blank there for your particular business. And again, we're just building that script. We have the greeting, we have the attention statement. Now you've got a benefit interest statement. The next type of interest statement is a pain loss avoidance. Now this creates some discomfort. Most people feel comfortable with the benefit interest statement. But if you're a little bit more bold or you think it makes sense in a particular case to use a pain loss avoidance interest statement, then this is the direction that you can go. And what this says is it's the takeaway. So I have some ideas to prevent, right? So in my business, it might be, I have some ideas to prevent your carpet from needing to be replaced. Right, so it's the opposite of the benefit interest statement, and I'm calling out something that people would generally say, oh yeah, I don't want that, right? So hopefully we're gaining agreement. And then the combination interest statement is really just combining the benefit and the pain loss avoidance. So often it's the most effective because we don't know what people are going to hone in on. So you can just take the last 2 statements that you wrote out and stick a combining word in between them. And again, often that's the most effective. So make sure you fill in the blank for the benefit statement as well as the pain loss. All right, and the last step to opening the call is asking for time. And so this question is, do you have a few minutes to talk? Okay, so why are we asking for time? Why aren't we just showing up and throwing up all of our information? And the reason is because people like it when you ask permission, right? And it's okay if they say no, because it gives you an opportunity to then ask what is a better time to connect with them, and maybe you can actually schedule an appointment. But it's important to ask permission if they have a few minutes to talk, because that alleviates that pressure or that pushiness, the awkwardness of a person looking at you kind of with that look on their face like, I don't have time for this, or I don't want to talk to you right now. You've asked permission really within the first 4 sentences out of your mouth. And so if the answer is yes, then we're going to move forward. If the answer is no, then we have a couple of options. One option, if the answer is no, is to use an insurance interest statement. And so what we want to do in an insurance statement is express empathy first, right? And so it sounds something like this. Look, I understand how busy you are. The ideas I have for you are already producing results for your competitors. And it's worth 10 minutes to learn how you can experience the same success, isn't it? Right, so it's just a basic statement. It's kind of the last ditch effort to see if you can get some time with the customer right then. Again, in the beginning of the sales process, if you're just starting out, if you're feeling really awkward and uncomfortable about this, if you'll just go through the first 4 steps of the opening, so the greeting, getting attention, benefit interest statement, asking for time, then you can take whatever their answer is. But the insurance interest statement is just that one additional step in hopes of getting their time right then. All right, so this is the complete opening. Greeting, getting attention, create interest, ask for time, insurance statement. We're going to put this all together. And so let's take a look at your notes and let's see what you have for a greeting, what you have for an attention statement. You know, are you going to use a referral? Are you going to use some type of connection that the two of you both might have, whether that's a person, place, or thing? You can even get attention by complimenting someone, you know, on a blouse that they're wearing or a necklace that they have, or you noticed something about their store, their shop. You know, there's all different ways to get attention. And then as far as interest is concerned, you know, again, we have those 2 main types of interest statements, which is the pain loss avoidance, the benefit interest statement, and then the combo interest statement. And then last but not least, asking for time. So hopefully I gave you a few minutes here just to make sure that you've got that entire opening. So let's go over here to our polls one more time. And let's just launch this really quick just to see who's listening. So what's the most important step in opening the call? Which one do you think it is based on what we just talked about? Is it the greeting? Is it getting their attention? Is it creating interest? Or is it asking for time? Which one do you think it is? All right. Good participation. We'll leave it open for a few more seconds. We're at about 80% right now. Okay, and let's share out those results. All right, so we've got half of you thinking that the most important step is in opening the calls asking for time. 38% creating interest, 13% getting attention. Nobody thought the greeting was the most important. So the correct answer is creating interest. Creating interest is the most important step to opening the call. The reason it's creating interest and not asking for time is because if there's no interest, there's no sale, right? If someone isn't interested, it doesn't matter if they have time or not, right? Because we're not going to be able to move forward from there. So creating interest, most important step to opening the call. And that's why the interest statement, whether it's a benefit interest statement, pain loss avoidance, or using a combination, is the most important. All right, after we open that call, the next thing that we're looking at is a transition statement. So we asked for time, and let's assume that our suspect or prospect said, yeah, I've got a couple minutes. Now what we want to do is bridge the conversation, right? We want to bridge from, I've got some ideas that I want to share with you. Do you have a couple minutes to chat? We want to bridge that to the next step of the sales process, which is gathering information. And a transition statement is going to sound something like this. So before I share my ideas, I just want to ask you a few questions to get a better understanding of your situation. And I'm going to take notes as we go. Is that okay? So the reason that I ask people if it's okay to take notes is because when I'm gathering information, I want to make sure that I get it right. But in addition to that, I want them to know that what they tell me is important enough for me to write down. So there's two things that play there. I also want to let them know that my plan right now is to ask them questions, right? So that I understand where they're coming from and I really understand what their needs are. My plan isn't to just throw up all the information about my particular business, product, or service. I want to ask questions first and really understand if we're even a fit before I launch into all of my different ideas. And I'm sure we've all had the experience where we walk into a retail location or some kind of business and people say to us, hi, can I help you with anything, right? And our rote response to that is what? No, I'm just looking. Hopefully you guys are talking out loud. And after we say, no, I'm just looking, then they launch into whatever the sales are that day. Okay, well, I just want to let you know that sweaters, in the back that, are marked with a red tag are on sale for 30% off. And you might want to check out, the accessories or the jewelry because those are 10% off if you spend over $100. And they launch into all these different features, right, of their particular store. Things that they think you might be interested in, but they don't really know because they haven't asked any questions. And part of them not knowing is that the first initial question that they asked, right, was, can I help you with anything today? And we, of course, have a rote response to that versus doing a complete opening the call. Like, hi, Sherry, I'm Christine. How are you? Right? If you ask them a yes or no question, then it's easier for them to shut you down. So this is a transition statement in order to get us into gathering information. So let's talk about gathering information. Why are we asking questions? We're asking questions because we really want to understand what their needs are, what their pains are, what their wants are, and most importantly, we're gathering that information so that we can tailor our presentation specifically to their hot buttons. Right? If I ask you what you're interested in, what you're looking for, what your priorities are, and you tell me, and then when I present to you my business and my information, but those don't align with anything that you disclose to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Or if I don't ask you any questions and I just start blurting out everything that I have to sell, I don't know what your hot buttons are. I don't know what you're looking for. So that's why we gather information first. That's why we ask questions first before launching into our features and benefits. So when we gather information, there's really two different types of questions. There's close-ended questions, which usually elicit facts. And then there's open-ended questions that usually elicit needs. And so I'm going to launch another poll because you guys are doing so great with the polls today. And I want you to select any of the following that you identify as open-ended questions, right? So which of these questions do you think are open-ended? Tell me more about how you attract customers. How long have you been in business? How do you plan to accomplish your sales goals this year? Are you happy with your advertising campaigns? How many employees do you have? Okay, so of those questions, which ones do you think are open? Which ones feel open-ended to you, where people are going to elaborate on their response. And which questions feel close to you? The answer is more than likely a fact, right? It's a factual type answer, either a yes or no or a fact. All right, good participation. Thanks, guys. Let's take a look what we think. All right, tell me more about how you attract customers. 100% of us said that that's an open-ended question, and you are correct. That is open-ended. How long have you been in business? 7 years, right? That's a close-ended question. It elicits a fact. How do you plan to accomplish your sales goals this year? 80% of us thought that was an open-ended question, and if you were one of them, that is correct. It is an open-ended question. They're going to elaborate on what their sales goals are and how they plan to accomplish those. This could flow into several other follow-up questions. Now, this is a tricky one. Are you happy with your advertising campaigns? This is actually a closed-ended question. And the reason is because I can answer yes or no to it. Are you happy? Yes. Are you happy? No, right? So how would I convert that to an open-ended question? Instead of saying, are you happy? I could say something like, tell me about your level of happiness around your advertising campaigns, right? And that might expand that out. And then lastly, how many employees do you have? Clearly eliciting a fact. And so that's a closed-ended question. All right, great job, guys. So this is just a quick gathering information workshop. Can you come up with 3 closed-ended questions or 3 to 5 open-ended questions? And the reason that I want more open-ended than closed-ended is because open-ended has a tendency to elicit needs. And that's really what we're looking for. We want to know what your customer needs are so that you can offer features and benefits that qualify against those particular needs. So my preference is that you ask as many open-ended questions as possible. But sometimes in our business, we have closed-ended questions. We have factual information that we absolutely have to gather. So I'm not saying you can't ever ask a closed-ended question. I'm just saying let's pepper it throughout with more open-ended questions. So again, if you've got a notepad and a pen handy, something where you can take notes, see if you can't write down a few questions. One of the things that I always recommend to my clients is that they actually create a gathering information worksheet. And this is something their staff members, employees can use as well. What are those overarching open-ended questions that we always want to ask our customers? What's that information that we always want to gather from everyone? So you can almost think of it like a survey, right? These are the things that we want to know no matter what. These are the things we need to know so that we present the right type of information on our business to that prospective customer. And so if you have that little worksheet together, it's almost like a cheat sheet, and it creates some continuity and consistency amongst your staff and yourself as to the type of questions you're asking the customer. And so that's just a little side note as you put together your closed-ended and your open-ended questions. Is there some kind of a worksheet or a cheat sheet that you could put together for your staff so that your sales process is more consistent? So the last stage in the research call, or the first 3 steps of the sales process, the overall opening the call, is paraphrasing. And so sometimes people get confused between paraphrasing and parroting, right? And this is part of the kind of annoying factor that some salespeople give off and that you experience as a customer is you tell someone, what you're looking for or what you need, and they parrot that back to you, and it feels a little strange, right? They just literally repeat what you just said. So paraphrasing is different. Paraphrasing is making sure that you create awareness around the need that the customer has expressed. And so you're restating their needs in your own words, not necessarily parroting back what they just said. And it also allows you to ask for some agreement. It's actually the first opportunity that you have in the sales process to gain some agreement and get them to say yes after that initial yes when you asked for time, right? So technically it's the second yes in your sales process, but this is a more important yes because essentially they're saying, yeah, we're on the same page. I agree with you that I have the following needs. And last but not least, we never want to paraphrase to no sale or to our competition's advantage, right? So if they happen to bring up a need of something that you know we can't handle, right, as a business owner or as a salesperson for a particular company, then that's not something you want to paraphrase back. So for example, in my own business, I may go into a customer's house and start asking them, all right, so what are we trying to accomplish today? Tell me about your floor cleaning needs. How many different types of flooring do you have, right? So those were a couple of open-ended questions with one close-ended question, if you caught that. And so they may tell me a little bit about their carpet, a little bit about their laminate or their vinyl. And then they may also say something about broken pipes or a little bit of flooding that they've had in their basement, which requires some restoration work. Well, in my particular business, I don't have equipment for restoration. So when I go back and paraphrase their needs, I'm going to say, I do have, services in order to get this carpet cleaned and we can get all this pet hair up. We also have a special service for laminate flooring as well as vinyl. And then I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, I'm not going to go into the fact that I don't have the equipment to do water restoration treatments and they'll probably have to call someone else, because what I want to do is gain agreement for the services that I do have through paraphrasing. So after we're done with paraphrasing, this completes the opening all the way through step 3, which is paraphrasing. And what you want to do at the end of this is let your prospect know that you plan to return with a recommendation. Now, in some of our businesses, we can go right on through to recommendation, right? There's not a reason to break that sales call up into 2 different calls. We can just keep going with the information that we've received after our needs analysis or after gathering information and then paraphrasing, and we can immediately go into our recommendation and really the last 5 steps of the sales process. But for some of us, we're doing more of a complex sale. And if that's the case and you actually have to prepare a proposal, then this is a great stopping point where you can say, thank you so much. I think I fully understand your needs at this point. And so what I'm going to do is go and put a proposal together and let's schedule a follow-up meeting so that you can review my total recommendation. And so sometimes a question comes up about when should I use the research call? Do I use that when I'm on the phone? Do I use that when I'm in person? And my answer to that is you always use it, right? You always use the research call. You always open the call the same way, regardless of whether you're in person or on the phone or even via email. I always like to combine those 4 elements of opening the call: greeting, getting attention, creating interest, and asking for time, even in my written correspondence, because it puts people at ease regardless of whether you're in person, on the phone, or in written correspondence. So always use that research call. All right, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our funding partners. These are central to our agency, and we're thankful for the support of all of these different groups that help us provide the kind of service, just like these online webinars. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions to see if anybody has questions on the content that we covered today. And so go ahead and type in that chat box or the question box.
There was a question on your second poll as to planning your calls. Should you do that per day, per week, per client? You responded that you should plan out each call, but calls may be similar. If you're doing 5 calls in a day, you may use the same script, just modify it slightly for each individual. Is that correct?
Yes, and a lot of this depends on your industry. So if you have, like Waldo said, if you have very similar type prospects, then the pre-call planning can be similar. What you're typically looking for is continuity and consistency in your sales activity. So what I want you to think about is, am I doing sales activity every day? Am I doing sales activity just on Thursday afternoons? And so you want to chunk out a certain amount of time to do pre-call planning prior to the actual sales activity. But the fear, of course, is that you spend too much time planning and not enough time actually doing the sales activity. So don't get bogged down in pre-call planning, and instead just allocate a certain amount of time where you're going to check out somebody's website, make sure you know what the notes were from the last time you contacted them or called, and then we're going to go for it. You don't want to get bogged down in the planning.
Okay, Sonia asked another question. Do you have any strategy tips to sell the opportunity to improve the current situation?
So when you have the condition of need that someone wants to improve their current situation, and clarify this for me, Sonia, are you saying this is the strongest condition of need, or you're saying what's a strategy if they don't currently have a need, or you're trying to introduce them to that need?
All right, Sonia, I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask your question or clarify that for Christine.
Okay, hi. We worked together about 1.5 years ago, and I have developed a product to improve a condition, improve a current situation, that people might not even be aware that that the current situation could be improved. Or, I mean, when they see the product, they see that it's evident that, oh yeah, this could be really helpful. But I was just wondering if you have any tips specifically for that kind of selling, for making them aware of how that the current situation needs improvement.
Right. And
they need this product to improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And often when you have what I call, a new technology or a disruptive technology, right? People don't know about it, so they don't know that they need it, right? So it's sort of this chicken or the egg thing. Until you're aware of this tool, then you don't know how cool it could be, or how how you could implement it within your business model. So a lot of your sales activity is going to be around awareness versus presenting features and benefits, right? It's more around just awareness that this could potentially be a need. So the best strategy that you can use is to use that complete opening. You've got your list of suspects or prospects. Use that complete opening where you identify that interest statement or the benefit that could happen if they hear some of your ideas, and then come up with those gathering information questions that really funnel them or point them to your product. So you want to ask important questions to your prospect where the answer or the need that they uncover, your product solves, right? So it's a little bit of psychology in being able to identify the needs that are going to align with your particular product. And then what is that big benefit that prospect is going to get, right, by having your product or your technology as an option? So I would encourage you to go back through that opening the call and make sure that your interest statement is really strong. And then take a look at those gathering information questions to make sure that as you ask the open-ended questions, it's really gearing them towards the benefits of your product.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for the question. All right, Waldo, anybody else?
I don't see any more. We can hang out here for a little bit longer if anybody has any further questions. Otherwise, I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I want you to let you know that our next webinar is scheduled for Thursday, April 12th. It will be from 5 to 6 p.m., so an evening presentation. And the topic on that will be developing a cash flow statement for your business. So we want to remind you to please take time to complete the survey as you leave the presentation today. It only takes a few seconds and it provides us valuable information. We do read your survey and it provides us with important feedback for future topics and what your needs are. So if you have any further questions or need assistance, feel free to contact us. Our contact information is on the screen. Our business counseling is at no cost, and we would be happy to assist you. There is one last question, just as a clarification. My previous question was in regard to how much time was spent, as in time per week, time per day, time per client. So that was asking about general
PreCall planning. Yeah, PreCall planning.
Right.
And really, what it's very industry specific. I personally would not spend more than 15 or 30 minutes on PreCall planning for any particular prospect. What I want to do is get on the line, get in front of them, have a strong opening so that I can get to the point of gathering information. The most important thing is that you get into activity. And activity is the actual engagement with the prospective customer. Because the biggest thing that happens with business owners as well as staff members that are in a sales and marketing role is they use planning as almost a way to avoid the actual sales activity. So I put a time limit of 15, 30 minutes max on each prospect as far as planning is concerned, and then just get in there and get it done.
Okay, I think that is all the questions, and we are right at close to the top of the hour, so we want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, we'll be posting this on YouTube either later today or tomorrow. You can view this presentation again if you choose. If you would like a copy of the slides, please contact us and we can see about providing them to you. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great day, and please keep our next presentation, our next webinar in mind. Join us on April 12th if you have the time.